Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something that I think can genuinely change your English journey. Our mission basically is to unpack how fluent English speakers actually talk in real life. Because, spoiler alert, it often looks absolutely nothing like your textbook. And the big question we're tackling is this: how can you stop kind of obsessing over grammar and finally just unleash your natural fluency?
Yeah, it's such a critical point for so many learners. I mean, look, grammar is important, right? It gives structure, helps understanding. But what we've seen in the sources is this really common trap where it stops being a helpful guide and actually becomes this huge barrier. It ironically holds people back from speaking.
That really is the heart of it, isn't it? This grammar obsession trap. So many people seem to fall into it. It feels like a really familiar cycle.
Yeah.
Can you maybe walk us through what that trap actually looks like, in practice, based on what the sources say?
Absolutely. The research really points to a few common pitfalls. One is just plain overthinking. You get paralyzed trying to build the perfect sentence in your head before you even open your mouth.
Right. Total analysis paralysis.
Exactly. And then there's this intense fear of making mistakes, this terrifying idea of getting something wrong. And what happens, often just silence. People end up focusing way too much on memorizing obscure rules instead of, actually getting their message across and connecting with people. And maybe the most common thing, feeling not ready constantly, believing you need to master every single grammar rule before you can possibly speak naturally.
And where does that feeling typically come from? Is it just us? Or is it more about how we're often taught?
Well, the sources really lean heavily towards those textbook-focused learning environments, where everything's built around rules, exceptions, tests.
Very structured.
Very, but real conversation. It's messier, it's faster, it's way more flexible than those rigid lessons allow for. There's a great analogy in the sources. It's like trying to drive a car while checking the instruction manual every 5 seconds.
Huh. Yeah, you'd crash.
Yeah.
Or just never leave the driveway.
Precisely. You'd never get anywhere. And here's something fascinating the sources point out. Grammar rules were actually developed after the language evolved.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. People spoke first, they communicated. The rules came later, simply trying to describe what people were already doing.
That's such a powerful way to think about it. People spoke first. Okay, so if textbooks aren't the whole story, let's pull back the curtain. How does native level communication really look day to day? What's the first thing that kind of jumps out from the sources about natural speech?
Well, one thing the sources make crystal clear is that contractions absolutely rule. Fluent speech is just full of them.
Right, like gonna and wanna.
Exactly. You'll constantly hear, I'm going to, instead of I'm going to, or want to grab coffee later. Not the full, do you want to get some coffee later? They're not lazy shortcuts. They're like the linguistic grease that makes real speech flow naturally and quickly.
Yeah, makes sense. And it's not just shortening words, right? Sometimes it's those little sounds or maybe incomplete thoughts we add that actually help us sound more fluent. What do the sources say about things like, those fillers?
You've absolutely hit on a crucial point there. Those phrases like, sir. Oh, so actually, they aren't signs of bad speaking, not at all.
Okay.
In fact, they're actually really useful tools. They give you thinking time, they can add emphasis, they help smooth out the conversation flow, they help us manage our thoughts in real time. And another thing, sentence fragments are everywhere. Complete perfect textbook sentences, not always used, especially in quick back and forth. Someone asks, seen the new movie? The natural reply is often just, not yet, you, not some long, drawn-out, grammatically perfect construction.
That's honestly so liberating for learners to hear, I bet. Just knowing that is okay. And what about the grammar itself? Do fluent speakers always reach for the most complex tenses or structures?
Not really. No, quite often things like perfect tenses or really complex sentence structures get simplified just for clarity and speed. Well, think about did you eat instead of the technically more correct have you eaten, right? It's just more direct, faster, and everyone understands it in context. And that brings up another huge point from the sources. Context is king, absolutely king.
How so?
Fluent speakers rely heavily on it. They use gestures, maybe use pronouns a bit loosely. They trust the listener to fill in the gaps based on the situation. The main goal isn't grammatical perfection, it's understanding, it's connection. If the message gets across, the grammar did its job, even if it wasn't strictly by the book.
Okay, so real communication. It means sometimes people are even, breaking grammar rules, technically speaking. Can you give us a few examples of that from the sources, where native speakers say things that are maybe wrong on paper but sound completely natural?
Oh, definitely. The sources give some great examples. For instance, instead of the very proper, I have not got any, you'll very often hear, I don't got none.
The double negative.
Exactly. Classic double negative. But it's fluently used and commonly heard. Or another one, me and her are going, instead of the grammatically pristine, she and I are going.
Guilty is charged on that one sometimes.
Yeah, many people are. And you'll definitely hear things like, he don't know nothing, instead of he does not know anything. Now, are these sentences textbook correct? No. But the sources are really clear. They are natural, they are fluent, and they are commonly heard in real, everyday conversation.
That's fascinating. It really hammers home how different real speech can be. So, okay, if perfect grammar isn't the holy grail we thought it was, what should you focus on instead? What's the real game changer the sources point to for building genuine fluency?
I think the biggest shift, the most impactful one, is to learn chunks, not just rules.
Chunks.
Meaning phrases, common collocations, how words naturally team up together. Stop trying to just memorize isolated grammar points in a vacuum. Instead, focus on things like make a mistake, heavy rain, fast asleep, or maybe patterns like I'm looking forward to, plus the ing form. This is actually how your brain prefers to store language, like pre-built units ready to go.
Like Lego blocks for language. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
We don't build every single sentence from scratch, word by word. We grab phrases we know. What else?
The second big thing is to listen actively to real English. Really immerse yourself. Podcasts like this one, hopefully, vlogs, movies, real conversations you overhear. Pay attention not just to the words, but the rhythm, the common phrases people use, the fillers, the contractions, how people actually sound when they express ideas. There's also a really powerful technique here the sources mentioned called shadowing.
Shadowing?
Yeah, where you basically quietly repeat what you hear almost immediately after the speaker. You try to mimic their rhythm, their intonation. It's great for internalizing the flow.
Oh, I like that. Shadowing. Great for picking up that musicality of the language. So it's not just about input, but how you process and practice it. What's the third key area?
Prioritize fluency and flow. Your main aim should be getting your message out smoothly, keeping the conversation moving, rephrasing if you get stuck. The sources really emphasize this. Smooth communication beats grammatically perfect silence every single time.
Okay, smooth communication, perfect silence. Got it.
And flowing from that, number 4 is to focus on communication itself. Ask yourself the real questions. Did they understand me? Did I understand them? Did we actually connect? That's the real win. Grammar is just the tool to get you there.
Right. And this next point feels so important, especially for anyone who's, scared to even open their mouth. What about mistakes?
Ah, yes, mistakes. You need to embrace strategic mistakes because you all make them. Heck, even native speakers make them. See them as feedback, not as failures. The absolute biggest mistake you can make is letting the fear of making small errors stop you from speaking at all. The sources consistently highlight this. Confidence over perfection. Just speak without that constant fear. And remember that idea we talked about? Thinking like a child learning their first language. They don't hit the grammar books. They learn by copying, by prying, by, messing up and trying again. You can harness that too.
That's great advice. Now, I can almost hear some listeners thinking, okay, but won't I sound stupid or unprofessional if my grammar isn't perfect? It's a fair question, right?
Yeah.
What do the sources say about finding that balance between sounding natural and sounding, say, professional?
It's an excellent question. And yeah, the sources do address it. The consensus seems to be that clear, simple, confident communication is often perceived as more professional than overly complex, hesitant speech, even if the latter is grammatically flawless.
Interesting point.
Think about it. Someone who speaks clearly and gets their point across confidently, even with a few minor slips, usually comes across better than someone who speaks perfectly, but is slow, halting, and obviously anxious about rules.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
But then what about writing? Surely I still need top-notch grammar for writing emails or reports.
Absolutely. And that's a key distinction. Writing does generally require more formal, precise grammar. The sources really stress that speaking and writing are different skills. They should be trained somewhat separately. A very common trap for learners is trying to apply strict writing rules to their spoken English, and it often paralyzes them. Don't let writing rules freeze your speaking.
Right. Different context, different rules. Sort of. And one last worry. What about developing bad habits if you're not constantly policing your grammar? How do we avoid just reinforcing mistakes?
Yeah, that's valid. Awareness and feedback are the keys here. You need to keep listening actively to good models of English and try to get feedback when you can from teachers, language partners, trusted friends. The goal isn't no grammar, not at all. It's developing effective communication grammar.
Effective communication grammar. I like that.
Yeah, grammar that serves the real purpose. Being understood clearly and connecting with others. You're learning to use grammar as this flexible tool, not a rigid taskmaster.
Okay, this is all incredibly helpful. So if you listening are ready to break free from this grammar obsession, here's your action plan, starting right now. First, shift your goal. Aim for being understood and confident, not necessarily grammatically perfect. Second, listen differently. Next time you're hearing English, a show, a podcast, a conversation, actively tune in to those contractions, fragments, fillers, common phrases. Notice how people really talk, and maybe try that shadowing technique we mentioned, repeat quietly after them. Third, learn phrases, those chunks we talked about. Keep a notebook, use an app, whatever works. Collect useful chunks you hear or read. And crucially, practice saying them out loud. Build your inventory of ready-to-use phrases. Fourth, speak more, worry less, seriously. Find low-pressure situations. Talk to yourself. Describe your day out loud. Join a casual conversation group online or in person. Just prioritize getting the words out. Practice makes progress. And finally, maybe most importantly, be kind to yourself. Learning a language is a journey. Celebrate every time you try, every time you speak, even when you feel that fear. That's a win.
Absolutely. And just to reiterate that core mindset shift we saw across all the sources, you really don't need to be grammatically perfect to be fluently understood. In fact, that obsession with perfection, it might actually be the very thing slowing you down significantly. Your number one goal is communication, connection, not perfection. And remember, every single time you open your mouth and speak English, you're training your brain, you're building those pathways.
That's exactly right. Fluency isn't about reciting rules perfectly like a robot. It's about, well, connecting with actual people, sharing your ideas, navigating the world in English. Real speech is flexible, it's dynamic, sometimes it's a bit messy, and that is completely okay. So let go of the obsession, embrace the natural flow, and focus on communication. You'll likely see your confidence just soar.
And maybe just one final thought to leave you with, something to mull over from this deep dive. Remember, fluency isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about being understood. So here's a question for you. What's maybe one grammar rule you're going to consciously decide to worry LES about starting today?
Enjoyed the video? Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Subscribe for more English learning videos. See you in the next lesson.